Alright guys, gather round because we're about to put on our tinfoil hats and dive into the Stranger Things Season 5 theory multiverse. And yes, I said multiverse because apparently one theory isn't enough. We need a whole buffet of them working together like the Avengers, but with more bike rides, nosebleeds, and trauma. Credit where it's due. Screenrant dropped a Stranger Things theory video that connected so many ideas. It deserves a deeper dive. I'll leave a link to their original in the description. So let's start with the boy who kicked this whole nightmare off. Byers. The Duffer Brothers already confirmed Season 5 is bringing us full circle to Season 1. Translation: we're finally getting answers about Will's week-long camping trip in the Upside Down. This short clip, along with some behind-the-scenes evidence, has fans theorizing that it's actually Will back in Season 1, dodging the Demogorgon in the Upside Down. What exactly did Will see and experience out there, and how has that shaped the story we're watching now? But the real question is, why Will? When the creature popped up on his bike ride home, it wasn't random, it was intentional. Some even say that wasn't a Demogorgon at all, it was Vecna himself, because whoever it was straight up unlocked the Byers' house door telepathically. No Demogorgon has ever done that. It's one of those things that make you say, Here's where the plot thickens. Theorists are connecting Will's story with Henry Creel. Both were bullied, both felt like outcasts, and according to the Broadway show reveal, both dipped into another dimension and came back different. The play even says Henry came back with powers, and we all know that Will already has true sight. This is how Stranger Things might actually be building the lore of the Upside Down and everyone's powers, and it's way weirder than you think. According to the Broadway play, Dr. Brenner's obsession with turning kids into human weapons didn't just start in Hawkins' lab. It goes all the way back to his daddy issues. See, Brenner's dad was some big military guy in the 1940s who captained a naval ship that disappeared from where it was supposed to be and popped up somewhere else, like a glitching video game. Side note, this is based on a real-life conspiracy theory of a top-secret project called Project Rainbow, aka the infamous Philadelphia experiment. Now, in the play, the government's big plan is to make the ship invisible. The reality? Well, allegedly it went all full sci-fi and teleported to another dimension, Dimension X, where the crew just casually bumped into Demogorgons, which, by the way, looks suspiciously like the exact spot Henry Creel winds up when he meets the Mind Flayer. But back to Brenner. In the play, his father is the only survivor of this little science experiment gone wrong, and he comes back with powers. Naturally, this inspires Brenner to go full mad scientist and try to replicate the experiment on humans during the Nevada test in the 1950s. And supposedly, guess who's hanging around Nevada at this time? Our boy, Henry Creel. Yup, he disappears into the Upside Down and later returns way before he even steps into Hawkins. So Stranger Things just isn't pulling from Dungeons and Dragon monsters, it's mixing in real-life conspiracy theories. But the whole point of all of this is to say that Will, who was in the Upside Down for about a week, may be in line to be just like Eleven in the powers department. Okay, let's talk about the real elephant, or I guess multi-headed reptile in the room, the new Stranger Things villain. Now, if you remember Season 4, Vecna treated Nancy to the absolute worst IMAX screening ever, full-on visions of the future. And she described a new villain, a huge monster with a gaping mouth. This vision set the fandom spiraling, because it lines up with a theory that's been around since Season 1, the Thessalhydra. Remember when the boys mentioned it in their D&D game? And you know the rules, if you mention it in Season 1, it's gotta show up by the finale. Add to that Will's painting from Season 4 of the party fighting a multi-headed dragon, and suddenly all the nerd breadcrumbs point to one giant boss battle with a mouthy, multi-headed nightmare. Now, before you start Googling the Thessalhydra, here's the crash course in D&D. It's a multi-headed reptile with a giant mouth. But Stranger Things doesn't just lift D&D monsters straight off the character sheet. I mean, take the Mind Flayer. On the show, it's the giant shadow spider demon, but the actual D&D Mind Flayer, it looks like your typical squid-headed pirate, totally different. Still, the show kept the important stuff like its evil goals, its powers, and its abilities. So even if we don't get a pixel-perfect Thessalhydra, the inspired version could easily be the endgame villain. But not everyone agrees. Some D&D fans are convinced the final monster isn't the Thessalhydra at all, but a dragon. What's the difference? Well, the Thessalhydra is more a giant multi-headed reptile, not the kind of dragon that hoards treasure and talks back to you. So maybe the Stranger Things crew was right to call it a dragon all along. The problem that would make the Season 1 appearance of this creature kind of confusing is that it means we would need a pretty wild explanation for why the show teased it way back in Season 1. Still, Stranger Things has a history of taking creative liberties, so who's to say they couldn't drop a multi-headed dragon into the show and relate it to the Thessalhydra for fun? Honestly, that's pretty much classic Hawkins logic. Back to the dragons. Fans are not just theorizing any dragon, there are multiple options of dragon greatness. We're talking Borys, the glowing red magma dragon who has red firestorms under his wings, which would fit perfectly with the Upside Down's red storm aesthetic. We've seen the red storm everywhere. The mind flayer is always in it, the darkest part of Billy's mind was consumed by it, and season 4 ended with Hawkins literally covered in a red storm. Then you've got people betting on Tiamat, the queen and mother of all dragons. She's basically the Beyonce of D&D dragons, and with her 5 heads, sometimes 3 depending on the version, she lines up with Will's painting too. And if that wasn't enough, some fans believe the true villain is Asgorath, the creator of dragons and the multiverse itself. This theory suggests that Asgorath's goal is total destruction to restore balance. Not just Hawkins, but the Upside Down, Vecna, and even everything connected to Brenner's experiments that are considered abominations. In this version, Vecna hasn't been the mastermind all along, but reporting up to something greater, only to realize too late that Asgorath's plan includes erasing him as well. Which brings us to the twist to a nightmare boss like Asgorath, if he does show up. Vecna might have no choice but to join the team to defeat him. Yup, the man who snapped teenagers like twigs might actually have to fight alongside the kids. Can you imagine 11 giving him a motivational speech like, yeah, you murdered half of Hawkins, but teamwork makes the dream work? It would be the strangest redemption arc since Kylo Ren, and honestly, Stranger Things might just pull it off. Now let's process how this could fit into the bigger picture. If we think of Dustin's analysis that Vecna is basically a 5-star general to the Mind Flayer, then this new villain, whether it's a Thessalhydra, a dragon, or a final level chaos incarnate, would be the commander-in-chief of the Mind Flayer, Vecna, and Demogorgons, basically the ultimate boss. So how do a few kids on bikes, and 11, whose greatest achievement has been closing a gate, stop this mega boss? Well, there's a popular theory that Will might be able to wield fire. In fact, some theorists believe that in season 5 trailer, when Vecna is seen repelling fire, he's actually blocking a stream of fire coming from Will, which would make the final showdown even more intense. If Will really ends up with fire powers, that's basically the party unlocking a walking flamethrower, which could be a total game changer. After all, the Mind Flayer and Vecna love it cold, so it makes sense that Will's biggest move could be cranking up the heat. Okay, throwback to season 1. Will actually uses the move Fireball during the D&D campaign against the Demogorgon. But here's the kicker. He didn't roll high enough to beat the Demogorgon in the game, which if you're into foreshadowing, less than an hour later, the Demogorgon ruins his day in real life. Fast forward to the end of season 1. Will's back at the D&D table, and this time it looks like he finally lands a winning blow, taking down the Thessalhydra in the game. And that's basically the theory in a nutshell. If Will's going to defeat the monster in the show, there has to be a Thessalhydra for him to take out. Fireball incoming. But here's the catch. Even if this is true, it probably won't be enough to take down a Thessalhydra, a dragon, or a multi-level boss. The strongest theory out there is that Will has been subconsciously shaping the Upside Down through his D&D knowledge. Sure, the Upside Down existed long before he entered it, but the eerie similarities between its monsters and D&D creatures suggest that Will's mind has been connected to the Upside Down without him even realizing it. And here's where it all comes together. What if Will learns to harness that ability on purpose? What if his final move is summoning his own D&D monster, maybe even a dragon, to take on whoever emerges as Vecna's ultimate ally, a creature powerful enough to face the primeval of the Upside Down when 11's powers and even Will's fire may not be enough. What if the only way to take down an army of interdimensional monsters, led by some giant dragon or reptilian nightmare boss, is to get one of your own? Makes sense, right? A few kids can't exactly just punch their way to victory against Vecna's ultimate evil. Wouldn't it be cooler if they actually scored a monster ally that could go toe-to-toe with the big bad? I mean, do you really think this ends with the kids defeating Vecna using Lucas's wrist rocket? Yeah, good luck with that. Now here's the thing, 2 full-on CGI D&D monsters, that's a whole lot of budget right there. I don't know if the Duffers and Stranger Things pulled all the money stops on the season, but still, think about how these kids could actually take down a creature that powerful and all the possible ways this showdown could play out. So which theory do you buy into? Are you getting dragons and Hawkins, or is Vecna about to pull the ultimate Uno reverse card and team up with the kids? Drop your theories in the comments, hit that like button if you survived my lore dump, and subscribe because trust me, I've got even wilder theories lined up.